We're finally at the Trek 520. You voted. You lost. I put this up on Instagram for a vote on how to build it, whether we should do the VO Rando bars or do the Nitto Bosco bar. It was pretty close, but I think that Bosco's got more votes, but I decided not to use them. We're going to go VO Rando. We're going to build this as a Rando slash sports touring slash real touring slash whatever you want to do. The reason why I decided that is because I have the RB2 now. The bottom bracket threads are fine. I want to build that up cool. I might even build it up. The frame's not nice enough. The paint's almost nice enough. That damaged threads, it's fine. I saved it, but I'm a little worried to, put $500 parts group and $300 of work into a bike with some damaged threads and have people be leery of it. I think it's uncool. But I want to build up that RB2 and I want to do it in a very ribbon stone build, which I'll probably do next. After I finish this video and finish the video of the PX10 that I filmed last week and the other new video I started this week on some flip bikes. But here we are, we know the wheels are good. Let's get this thing stripped, let's get it cleaned, let's get rim tape tubes and tires on those wheels and in. Make this thing start getting pretty. Ugh. Headset's too tight and it's probably definitely dead. Done a few things on this bike to see if we're going to do it or not. I want it to be nicer than it is, a little rusty and crusty. That's fine. Don't buy new wheels, don't put a bunch of money into it. I'm going to overhaul it, I'm going to build it up, I'm going to try and, out of my part stash or whatever, make it less rusty and crusty. I'll replace this rusty bolt. Anything's got a little bit of rust, I might scrub with a little brass brush. If I have a less worn out derailleur, I'll use it. Anything that's frozen, I'll replace. But I'm going to try and keep it all together. Keep it mostly original. I want to keep the Dior cranks and derailleurs and hubs and all that stuff. So the things I've already checked out are the wheels. So the wheels are a huge expense in any new project. So you need to figure out right away if they're usable or savable. These are Dior DX rear hubs. I have a lot of DX stuff and a little bit of regular stuff, so if I have to switch over to DX, I can. The rear derailleur is DX, the hubs are DX. I don't know about the cranks or any other stuff. A lot of stuff isn't really labeled. The wheels were almost perfectly round and true. I barely had to touch a few spokes. None of the spokes are frozen. The rims have the anno worn off and a little bit of chewing from old hard brake pads and some road grime in them, but they are totally fine and have just years and years and thousands of miles left. There's no damage to the spokes anywhere from like the chain dropping or rubbing. It's got a 7-speed cassette body that is Uniglide and Hyperglides. It's threaded inside and out, which is good because they don't make Uniglide cassettes anymore. You don't want to get stuck with something silly like that. I opened them up. I replaced all the bearings and grease. Check them out. The rear had one tiny pit in one of the cones. You cannot feel it. If you're doing tune-ups, a lot of shops will say 2 or 3 tiny ones are about the max. If it's worse than that, it's time to replace the hub, or if it's just the cones, not the hub itself, you could go dig around in your part stash and try and find another one, steal a good cone off of. So the wheels are totally legit, totally savable, overhauled, ready to go. I originally bought some 732 Pan Racer Paselas for this, but I've also got a barely used, very nice set of 735 Pan Racer T-Serves, which are basically the exact same tire, but in black instead of gumball. This frame looks like it'll fit 35s and fenders no problem. There's 2 things we can do. We can throw these guys all on here and set it up and then be disappointed. Or we can grab a tool and check real quick. The right thing to do would be to check real quick. But I want these to work. They really look like they'll work. Oh, they'll look like they'll work. Really might be wishful thinking. I'll grab the tool and check. So if you're new to the channel, you haven't seen this. If you've watched all my videos, you've seen it a couple of times. is a hand Rossmann tire checker. So it measures from the axle to different wheel sizes, 700, 650B, 26. And it's got a bunch of dummy tires. So it'll tell you what clears. These are, it's made for like a frame builder dummy axle, but these are just some old front axle, old rear axle. This is one from a, I think that's probably a 130 spaced hub or 135 spaced hub that has a lot of threads that I left loose so I can just move it down and thread it down to 126, 130, 135. So I was kind of lightly setting in there. I'm going to do, they made a 34, so I'm going to do 734. Stick the hook on the dummy axle. Come up and check. Oh, there's tons of room up here. Bottom bracket shell is usually the tightest place on a bike. There's tons of room down here. This is good signs. The front is the same. It's got tons of clearance. You can see there's like a 1/4 inch gap on both sides. A little bit more up here. A little tight for fenders. Metal fenders would be better because you dimple them, the crown. Make the tightest spot real tight. But when you get your tire basically touching a stay or one of the millimeter clearance, that's ridiculous. People say it fits. If bikes flex while you pedal, wheels flex while you're up and standing, you'll get buzz, you'll get them to buzz through the paint, you'll get them to buzz through the steel. I've personally had to throw many bikes into recycling because someone rode them with too big of a tire and literally cut all the way through the tube and just wrecked it. Like the tire's hitting it a million times. It's like a fine little rubbery sandpaper, but you hit it 50, 60, 70,000 times over 100 miles, it's wrecked, you know. So don't run tires that are too big. Lots of clearance all the way around. I really like a 1/4 inch minimum. I really like about 2 centimeters, so almost 3/4 of an inch under the crown and brake bridge for actual fender clearance. So you can, people try to run their fenders so tight on their bikes too, and then stuff gets caught in there. If they get bent at all, they catch the tire. Like, give yourself lots of clearance so you can ride through mud and rocks and junk and not care. So they can get beat up and bashed up a little bit and it's not rubbing your tire constantly and driving you mad. Alright, 35s it is. Makes me happier to use very lightly used tires because this bike is a little scruffy. You can see on here the old brake pads are rock hard and original, probably from the 80s, and have little chunks of metal in them. If you ride with rock hard brake pads with chunks of metal, you just destroy your rims. Not only will it dig in and wear out the rims, the chunks of metal will eat in like a file, like just destroying it. If you're trying to stop too hard with crappy brakes or set up poorly, you're squeezing the lever too hard to try and stop, you can literally take the rim, which is supposed to be flat, and make it a cup shape. You can concave it, make it cup, bending the metal in. It's terrible, it's bad. So don't do that. Save your wheels. Check your tire fit. Make sure they're not too tight. This bike has a tiny bit of rub on one side, but just barely. It's barely scratched the paint. And none on the other. There's none in the crown. It's good to go. It's got through bolt lowriders. So right now, I'm going to grab a 3-way. I'm going to start stripping this dude. This bike's a little crusty. I think I have some nicer parts, or at least some nicer little bits of hardware. Throwing that cable right in the recycling so I don't stab myself again. My finger's all messed up and bleedy and sore from a nice stab on a chunk of brake cable. And a tune-up I was doing on the Tomcats. I haven't mentioned it yet, I think, but I've been doing some fill-in and cover shifts over Tomcats. I did 2.5 days this week. Did a couple of days the week before. Pretty cool. Nice little shop. Getting this parts off so we can clean it. I'm going to take all these parts and put them on my dog tray and spray them down while watching a movie or a podcast and scrub them all tonight. I've also got like 3 other bikes with this junk I got to do. I was looking through my shifters. I think I've got some 8-speed bar end shifters. 7 and 8 are the same cable pull, so I should be able to set them to index no problem. If I didn't care about mismatching, I have some really nice Suntour Barcon shifters. Could use those, and they shift better and are totally cooler and blah blah blah, but it's nice to keep it all Shimano and cool. I want the indexing to be set up and work. And then you can have the option to put it on friction instead of only having friction. A lot of people don't care about their shifting. I really do. I want everything to work perfectly. So a little worried about the derailleur. It's a little sloppy. If I have a nicer one, I'll swap it out. And I have 2 or 3 other bikes I bought with Dior DX groups. So I have quite a few options. Hopefully I'll get the best one. This Dior front derailleur's got a little bit of wear on the inside. You can see the chain scraped it up a bunch. A little flat spot. Probably not enough to be a real problem, but if I have a nicer one, I will use it. My box of parts, we can put everything in nice and gentle. I don't want to lose all the parts off the brakes and have them explode everywhere. I like to keep everything together as much as possible. Try to keep all this stuff together. You don't want to lose parts. A lot of these things have 10 million little parts, and they're all in order. And if you're not familiar with them, you get the stuff too far apart, you'll never get it back together, right? A lot of people don't think that matters. They think having spare parts and crush washers and friction plates and springs left over is fine. If you're one of those people, stop now. Just stop. It's not cool. This thing's a shame. It has these really cool wide profile hangers, but they are so rusty. I tried to order a couple other sets off the internet that look pretty wide, but they're not. I don't know if it really matters. But, I mean, it's a lot of surface rust on the front. Part of me wants to replace this nut and just scrub it, but it'll come right back. But the whole thing's a little crusty. I keep wanting this bike to be too nice, and it's not nice. It's crusty. Crusty is totally cool. We don't mind crusty. You just gotta not go insane and spend too much money on a crusty build. Not buy a bunch of bling bling. Have people complain that I don't do this safely enough. I can punch the chain rings. It's true. I have punched the chain rings. You know, try and angle the tool out, trying to punch those chain rings. People say cheater bars aren't safe. Cheater bars are fine. Put a cheater bar on this handle. It's fine. Ooh, so over tighten these cranks are about blown out. Lots of grease on them. I can see grease all over the spindle. I can see grease on the other side. Whoever worked on this bike last did not know what they were doing. You can grease your crank bolt a little bit. Sometimes barely, wipe most of it off, but load it up and then just over tighten it and just tighten it until the crank blows out. The crank's on a square taper. It's a friction fit. You tighten them until they get tight, then you tighten them a little bit more. And you can double check them after some miles. But if you just tighten and tighten and tighten like it's a regular bolt and you're trying to get it to bottom out, you just destroy your cranks. So I'm not too hot on these cranks. I don't think we'll be reusing them. I might look at them. I might use them on a different bottom bracket. They got like 1 millimeter left. You might be able to press them back on without them bottoming out. I did save a different set of rings for this bike off a different set of Shimano cranks that are indexy rings and better size. This is 50, 45, something tiny. It's some weird wingnutty old man stuff. Half step gearing. So you can have a perfect gear range and no gears overlap and blah blah blah. It's bike nerd stuff for nerds that spend too much time on the internet and magazines doing research and talking about things. Same kind of guys who memorize every part number of everything and have very little actual practical knowledge. Sometimes they think they have a lot of practical knowledge because they did one repair once. But they rarely do. I had a guy build a set of wheels once for his friend's bike and give them to me. And he dished the front and the rear the same. So the rear's got to be way offset to leave room for the cassette. So the rear wheel was dished way in and hitting the frame. I couldn't figure out what was going on at first because he said he knew what he was doing. And then he made a joke later. He's like, well, I went to UBI, which is like the bike school. It's a 2-week class. It's 2 weeks. And it's a class. He's like, I went to bike school. And he thought he really meant that he knew more than most bike mechanics. Because they were just lowly mechanics. And all their knowledge is just from working on bikes, figuring things out, and being told from old guys. But he went to a classroom for 2 weeks, so he really thought he knew it, even though he never worked on bikes for a living, or professionally, or semi-professionally, and barely did anything bike-related. Free time, did not do a lot of stuff, and all the stuff was real shady. That's not true. School gives you a primer for the skills you're going to learn. The skills you're going to learn are going to be hands-on. On the street, actually doing it, with old guys yelling at you for doing things wrong, or coming up and shoulder tapping you and pointing out how to do things right. I'm pulling the cranks using a Park crank puller. Crank puller, you make sure the thread's in by hand. You never want to force it. You'll destroy your cranks. Once it's in, lots and lots of threads, then you can tighten the tool, and you have to tighten with the tool. Ugh. If you don't, there's a good chance it'll pull the threads out of your cranks instead of pull the crank arm off the bottom bracket spindle. Don't ask me how I know. It was a tragedy. I've seen a few other guys do it too. Cranks are another big expensive item, so you really don't want to rack them. Like, this bike would be a real sad bummer if I didn't have like 6 other sets of Dior cranks sitting around. Might as well get this BB out. Oh, it's real tight. I bet it's dead, but you know, seal cartridge is the way. You're supposed to be able to be a good mechanic and do this in the stand and walk around. I got all my recycling down here. And it is not hard for me to flip this around, and it is not hard to put it back. And it might even be beneficial. Also, I should point out, since I'm doing this, you should never clamp a bike on the seat tube. This is a real thin tube and real easy to crush and wreck. I should always do the seat post. This is a heavier duty touring bike, so I'm not as worried. If it was aluminum or carbon, you'd already broken your frame, so don't do it. This is also a special like screw clamp instead of like a spring-loaded clamp like the Parks. So I can barely make contact and barely put any pressure on this and have it hold real nice. So I'm not as worried with this nice efficient Velo Tools crank arm clamp, or crank clamp, but you know, if you're using Park and stuff, you really do as I say and not as I do. This fits medium terrible. So on bikes, there's 2 reverse threads. The drive side cup is reverse threaded. Lol, that was an accident. And the non-drive side pedal is reverse threaded. So usually on these, I have to get like a lock ring tool on, hold it on pretty good, or even clamp it on with a tool and then hammer it. But this just kind of came loose right on its own. So that's cool. I over-tighten everything on bikes, and I've been trying for years and years and years to do less and less and less of that. So it's nice when things where we find things that are not very tight and have been on here for years and are totally fine, to help remind you to stop breaking things and stripping things out, damaging things by over-tightening them. I've got a lot of pin spanners. This thing has a bunch of holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sometimes I have 2, sometimes I have more, sometimes I have weird ones. Big flat square ones. Here's a little Sagino pin spanner. It's just a little wrench. These are real common. It's got 2 little pins that you screw in. You can replace if they break off. This is probably the most common one. You see them all the time at swap meets and garage sales and bike events. This is the Park Tools one. It's adjustable, but also has the 2 little pins. I like this one a lot. My other one was really loose and always bothered me. This one's really tight, which I think I'll probably like a lot more. Let's see if the Sagino one will fit. And it is just not right. So buy up extra stuff when you see it. You can't just have one, especially working on old bikes before things were really standardized. This adjustable one's nice because it fits. Oh, this bike would be nice with a new paint job, but also the paint's not that bad. The logo's a real crisp. It's a metallic sparkly pearl. It's got a true temper sticker, it's got a Wheelsmith sticker, like it's pretty cool. Okay, let's do this non-drive cup. So it's got 2 little wrench flats. It's really skinny, you really can't use an adjustable wrench, it'll slip. You need to get some real bottom bracket tools. You can find this stuff on eBay for 10 bucks, 20 bucks. You can buy new Park ones for 10 to 15 bucks. On eBay or probably Amazon. So, like I said, this one's reverse thread, so it is righty-loosey instead of righty-tighty. These things are always kind of stuck, and I always kind of just whack them with a hammer. It's barely on there, so really make sure it's on there. That's all it takes, a couple hits. If it's really tight, you cannot keep this tool on. This is really hard to keep on and make it look easy, because I've done it a million times. You can clamp it down, you can use a freewheel removal tool, or an axle clamp, or a headset spacer, and a washer, and a crank bolt, and just whatever you can to clamp this on. Put a big giant washer on here, or a tool, or a spacer, and clamp it down. Done a bunch of other videos. I'm sure I'll make some more in-depth how-to videos in the future. I usually do it when something's on really, really tight and I actually need to do it. It's just being, no matter how hard I hit with the hammer, it just slips off. But most bikes are like this, 2 or 3 whacks with a hammer. Everyone will tell you not to round the cup off, and it's true. You don't have the tool on real nice. Tool that fits. Some of these are 35 mil, most are 36. So I definitely have an undersized one. If you watched like 2 videos ago, I get to pull out the big fancy campy tool, bottom bracket extractor, fixed cup tool, and so it's slightly undersized. I didn't have anything that would stay on it. It was real stuck. But boy, you put that big campy bottom bracket extractor tool on, a nice cheater bar, and pop! This comes right off. No issues. See how annoying it is? How easy it is to slip off? It's just so thin. Oh, you're annoying. That side's too tight. Came off. You can see it's kind of dry in there. You can really see a lot of red and rust. That's supposed to be covered in grease. So this may or may not be totally dead. Either way, it's got to come out. Hey, nice. I didn't throw away this. People throw these away all the time. It is a moisture and dust seal. It sets up against the cups and keeps water from leaking down and draining in. Don't throw them away. Reuse them. They're actually important. Ow, metal splinter. Also, that's going to happen if you're going to work on old junk. Flip it around again, because this is just annoying. It's just faster and easier. I don't care how unprofessional I am. Don't let people tell you pro things that don't work for you. You gotta figure out what works for you and do them because they work, not because they're pro or cool or whatever. Unless I tell you have to do something a certain way because it's pro, and then you should listen. Lol. Like lining up the tire logo with the valve stem. It's pro. Do it. Don't make your bike look like it was worked on by somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. It does steal from the beauty. It does steal from other people's appreciation of how cool your bike is, and if you do all this work yourself, it's a lot of work. It's hard to learn all this stuff. It's hard to find and buy all these tools. So, you know, people want to appreciate it. Give them something to appreciate. Make stuff look pro and not janky. Take some pride in it, man. Alright. Cups out. All that's left is the headset. And it feels way too tight, and it's definitely probably dead. Sure, it's got to come out. Bike stuff is expensive. You can get soap and stuff, but I found a couple bottles of this bike wash, and I grabbed it, and I'm happy I did. Got it for free. Anytime you see stuff for free, you got room for it, grab it, man. Because the problem is, if you want to learn how to do this on bikes and fix bikes, and you like riding bikes, there's a very good chance that you're not just going to do the one project you're working on and want to go home. You fall in love with this stuff and you get trapped, and all of a sudden you got just piles of it everywhere. Especially people who realize that you're the bike guy who likes buying bike parts and fixing on bikes, they'll start coming to you. I got deals. Take my stuff for free. I'll donate it. I'll sell it to you cheap. Well, every bit of dirt and grime that comes off makes it look a little bit better. Makes me a little bit more excited to work on it and fix it up. Give it a little preliminary scrub. It's done. We're just going to get that headset out. A bunch of ways to do this. Big adjustable or a 32 mil. So holding the fork. Sometimes I'll put a junk wheel in here and sandwich it with my knees, get down low and twist it. Sometimes I'll put a stem in with a big flat bar so I can hold on to the bar for leverage and twist it. Like, whatever works. Or, I mean, you can be boring and use 2 headset wrenches, but when stuff's really tight and trying to use 2 really skinny, fine wrenches, I find they round out and mangle the top nut a lot, or the top cup, which is the lock nut. And that's not really fun or cool. I think this is another big common mistake. 2 locking spacers. This spacer has a tooth washer, this one has a tooth washer. This one was fine. I find a lot of times when you do that, you'll get one to slip and turn, damage the threads. A lot of times when you over tighten it, you get one of these to slip and turn, damage the threads anyways. So you should try and find these are the biggest tooth that you can possibly find. Sometimes if you do this, I'm just holding the top nut and spinning the fork. See, it's coming down. If it's got loose balls, they might go flying everywhere, but not a big deal. Replacing ball bearings is a good thing. You should do it kind of whenever you're into something. Yuckies. And I will sort of inspect this when I'm cleaning it. Maybe I'll do a little bit of that right now. So I'm on the back side of the fork crown, getting those balls out of the way. I'm going to rub this off, the grease out of there, and really look at that race right on the crown where the balls go. Sometimes you'll see lots of little indentations in a row. That means it's dead. This actually looks fine. The headset just might have been over tightened but not written on much. I'm not seeing any. The back of the fork crowns are most of the pressure is on a bike, so that's usually the first spot that goes bad. But we'll still check the races with the bearings touch inside both cups and inside this top guy to make sure. It's got the sealed, or not the sealed, it's got the caged bearings, so it's a bunch of bearings in a little cage. If nothing's dead, I might just clean those cages and throw them right back in if they're dead. It'll be a new headset, or if these cages are broke from being over tightened, but the headset was fine. No damage, but these cages are warped or broke or missing a bearing, you can always freeball it. That's what it's called. You can just punch a bunch of grease in and install bearings into the grease free and get it all hooked up back together. Not worry about cages. Or some companies make new caged bearings in a zillion different sizes. You can measure them and go online so you can figure out and order some Wheels Manufacturing ones online and maybe get the right size. Now, cup extraction. Cup extraction's a little trickier. You really do need a tool. This is a Unor cup extractor tool. So it goes in, this guy flares out to grab the inside lip of the cup up in here, and you hammer it out. The first one of these I ever had, I didn't have one of these, but I had an old dead Peugeot frame, the slightly undersized top tube, like 25 mils, so 25/4. And I just did this. I just drilled some holes and took a hacksaw and just split it down, flared this out a little bit, and just hammer it on the top. Who cares, it was an open tube instead of a cap. So you can make this. When you press the headset cups back in, you can do it with a block of wood and a hammer. You can use the actual headset press. There's lots of tricks for that, so you don't need fancy tools if you don't have them. You can make your own, and they're fine for 2 or 3 headsets over 2 or 3 years, but if you're going to be doing bike builds all the time and swapping out headsets every week, you should buy the real tool. Just like that. One tap, sometimes takes 2 or 3. You can see that thing just sits, expands out and sits inside the tube right on top of this cup. Just knocks it out. I do the same thing. Draw it down and in. That snap out means it's past the headset and snapped out and hits the actual frame. Push it up all tight on that tube. One tapper dapper, and it's out. There are lots of different sizes of these headset cups that press in on the crown race and threadings and stuff, so you have to figure out which one yours is and figure out what size you need so you can order a new one. You can't really mix and match, and they're so similar. The difference in the cup sizes is 30 millimeters and 30.2 millimeters. But boy, if you try and stuff a 30.2 into your reamed out to only 30 millimeter head tube, I have seen people buckle the whole head tube and put dimples in it, like when you frontal a frame, like get an head-on collision, and the whole thing bends back and buckles this tube. I've seen people do that. Don't wreck your frame. Try and be cheap and lazy. It's not worth it. Cool, this dude is stripped. I found no major or serious issues. It's got a serial number. It's got the bottom bracket guide. It's not crimped or smashed or cracked or broken. The nicks from the chainring drop. Tire rub's not big. I saw no cracks. I saw no issues with the paint cracking around any lug, meaning the lug might be breaking or coming loose. I see no, dimples from head-on collisions. There's no cracks around the seat stay caps. There's no cracks around the bridges. So far, so good. There's nothing to indicate that this frame's junk. So now it's time to clean these parts. This is the less fun, more tedious thing, and I have some other parts to do, and I should probably do them, and I'll probably spend like 5 or 6 hours watching movies and scrubbing parts today. Why did I knock those cups out? I didn't check and see they're dead first. I don't know. Since I knocked those cups out, I'm pretty much telling myself, even though this crown race isn't dead, I'm not going to use this headset. Which may or may not be true. I'm going to clean those cups first to make sure they're not dead. I really didn't need to hammer them out, but got carried away with myself. I'm gonna do that first, and if that's how it works, I'm gonna overhaul the headset, get it back on, get the tires on the wheels, get it in, so at least it's like a real start to a project. You know, now it's getting clean. Maybe put an actual seat post in so this isn't so scruffy and redonk. Okay, so this is my little cleaning setup in my tiny little room because I don't have a lot of space. You can do all the bike work you want without a lot of space. This is just a plastic tub I keep all my handlebars in and use as a shelf for cleaning. I got parts off the Trek 520, some other parts from Sunday salvage sale. I got 2 or 3 more bins of parts that need to be cleaned from Sunday salvage sale. I got this little tub I keep down here for got chainring bolts, tools, and a little file, and lots of little wire brushes and plastic brushes and measuring tools and pliers and Allen wrenches and stuff. This is just my sort of cleaning stuff. Toothbrushes, brass brushes, you know, the good stuff. Some gloves, because I've absorbed way too much of this cleaner into my skin over the years. I've got a bag full of Ziploc bags down here for cataloging parts after they're clean. Got my laptop for music videos slash podcasts slash house. Bad TV shows. I'm watching Frasier. The new one's kind of terrible, but it's growing on me. The old one is pretty amazing and also growing on me. The house is a big jerk. It's more fun to watch. You know, you can have a parts washer, you can have a real garage, you can have a real bench. You can do this outside. I've done a lot of cleaning outside. I'm taking this tub with me in my wheel trimming stand and a lot of wheel overhauls outside when the weather's nice. But you know, this works great in the wintertime. Ugh. I'm going to start with the real greasy stuff and get it started soaking. And then I'll come back and hose this stuff down just a little bit more, pulling it all apart. And once this stuff's all clean and inspected, I'll dig through my other parts, see if I can find stuff that's even better, or non-rusty bolts to replace it, you know, like whatever, and then go back to the build. Little soft bristle brass brushes, one's full of dog hair, that's not helpful. The brass ones, I think they're actually aluminum with like fake brass coloring, but the brass ones are soft enough that you can really scrub some old dirty bike parts without it scratching them way up. You be careful on really nice parts, really good ano. They're wonderful for stuff like this. So like the hardware's got a little rust in it, the bolt's got some little rust pecking. A couple scrubs of this in 2 or 3 seconds, and you won't see the rust anymore at all. Be totally gone. And if you spill oil all over it with your greasy hands, it'll take years to rust if the bike's, you know, not abandoned, soaking wet and left to rot. All right, so I'm gonna get scrubbing. Check in with you guys as soon as we're ready to put some parts back on. Okay, so I got the frame cleaned up for the most part. You know, real basic soap and wipe down. Got all the parts scrubbed, ready to put this bike back together. As I was cleaning the headset, it looked like there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe it was just over tightened from the last guy and never really adjusted. It doesn't look dead or ridden on a lot. So I think we're going to save the headset and put it back in. The bottom bracket was definitely dead, so we're going to put in a sealed cartridge bottom bracket. Found a 26/8 seat post, which seems like it's the right size. A little shocked. I thought this would be 27/2 by now, but I guess it's still pretty old and it's more heavy-duty touring tubing. Got the headset. Oh, here's the thing. One of the reasons why I really love cleaning parts by hand is you really get your eyeballs and your fingers on stuff so you can see problems. Like this had a bent barrel adjuster. If you just threw that in a parts tank, you put it right back on the bike and have it all installed and then have the cables on before you realized it was bent and a nightmare. So I have a couple here, and I probably have a bunch more someplace else. I might dig around and find one I like the best that fits. The barrel adjuster taken care of. I did make the really fun decision because I just assumed this headset would be totally dead. But it is... It's got some wear, but there's no damage. So I knocked these cups right out the frame like a total idiot. And we're going to have to pop them back in. Pretty sure that's the top cup. Jesus. No wonder why they popped out so easy. Okay. This is not how things are supposed to work. You should not be able to push these in your hand. There should be a friction fit. It should be hammered in. This is ridiculous. Maybe the wrong size headset. Maybe stuff's just stretched out a little bit. I think this is 30.0. 30.0 is JIS. And that's, you know, this is a weird era of bikes where things could be JIS or ISO. ISO would be 30.2. This is only reading 30.0 as well. Interesting. There we go. The easiest way to tell is that, well, it's also a lie. The crown race is either 26.4 if it's ISO or 27.0 if it's JIS. One way to tell would be to try some other headsets that have some stamping on them. See if they're pressing just as easy, so let's do that. So here is a Japanese Hata headset, sealed. I bet you it is JIS. If I could just find the crown race. Sometimes on the bottom side of the crown race it says this is too cheap to say. But it kind of looks like it just presses right into. Whoa, super easy. Let's see, there's a lot of Japanese headsets. Taking apart a lot of old mountain bikes. This one's so generic, doesn't say anything anywhere. Falls right in too. There's a chance that this bike is an English ISO bike, like it should be, and someone at some point just pushed in a JIS headset for no reason. Just didn't notice it was wrong. I've got a brand new Tongay Professional in the box, new old stock, sold. It actually comes with the bearings in a little sealed case with grease. That's weird, never seen that. They usually just come in here in the wrapper. Instructions should tell you to put the bearings upside down, just to warn you. Keep crying out for that. Put stuff in the way it fits. So this is 30.2. We know this is ISO. That just pushes right in too. And, I mean, if this is in the right box. This is looser than the other stuff. The joys of working on old bikes. Well, so much for... All I want to do is put the wheels and tires on. Dang. Maybe this frame was overcut. Maybe this is the original stuff. Sometimes these things are ridden loose, they get bashed around back and forth and stretch the head tube a little bit. It's usually just the bottom cup. This is probably... Oh, it says right on it, 22.2 by 26.4. So this is definitely ISO. Is that damaged? Don't be damaged. I feel damaged. Well, if we really grease the crap out of the cups, they might be alright. They didn't turn. It doesn't really matter if they're almost loose instead of a real press fit. We could run the reamers, the head tube reamers through, but that's going to make it bigger or do nothing, which is going to be totally unhelpful. So there is one sketchy trick you can do, which is fine. Someone's telling me aluminum tape. It's very thin, like HVAC tape, this stuff. It's very thin, it makes a good shim, you can press fit it. It's, you know, thinner than a beer can, but less sketchy. Maybe I'll do that. I've also taken a nail in the past and a hammer and just whacked the nail and put a billion little dimples all over inside there. And then what it actually does is it creates, you know, a little dimple, but it pushes the other metal up around it, so it actually makes the rest of the metal come up. It's sort of like knurling. You ever see machining? There's like little texture knurled into a piece of tubing or something. It's kind of like a homemade way of doing that. But I'll make that just a little tighter. I think I'm going to try some HVAC tape. I do not have any right now. Guess we won't be doing the headset. It's a frustrating place to end a video on. No headset for now. So I will have to go to the hardware store and spend way too much money on some HVAC tape tomorrow. So thanks for watching. In part 2, we'll do that with the headset installed. get the wheels and tires on, and start building this thing up with all the new, fresh, and clean parts, which I have in this box, all clean, all ready to go. So thanks for watching. I can't really end this video on this failure, so at least get the wheels and tires done, even though I've only put the back one in for now. They are used tires. Let's make sure they're not going to sabotage ourselves. So I'm going to feel around, make sure these didn't come off because they caused a flat. Make sure there's not a hole in the sidewall. So I'm rubbing my fingers in really hard to see if I can feel anything sharp. A lot of guys will put like old nylons or something on their hands because nylons are meshy and will catch anything, even the littlest things barely poking through. Got this back wheel. So I got a matching set of Velox cloth rim tape and some Forte branded 700 by 20 to 32 tubes, but they're kind of big. The other ones I have, they're 28 to 32 or much smaller. So I think these would be fine for 35, no problem. The tubes I got the Sunday salvage sales. You know, buy up weird used stuff when you can find it. I probably paid, it's $2 a pound, I probably paid 25 cents a piece for those. Are 10 bucks a piece at bike shops now. Same thing with this rim tape. I got it at a swap meet. I got a whole case of rim tape from a defunct shop and paid very little for the whole case, knowing that I would need it all eventually. So I'm lining up the valve hole on the rim tape. Velox is not my first choice in rim tape. My first choice is New Bombs. Velox was the best thing for the last 30 or 40 years. Everything else is stupid. Don't use it. Unless you have it for free and have to, but Velox doesn't stick very well. New Bomb sticks a lot better. But Velox was the best before that. It's a nice, thick, woven tape. It's got glue on it. It fits really well. Sticks medium well. I'm surprised it's not falling off already, honestly. They make it in multiple sizes, so you can really kind of dial it into your rims if something's too big or too skinny. So I'm just going to trim it off so it overlaps a little bit. But not very much. Not enough to cover the valve hole. Make sure it didn't pull or move. Make sure you still see the valve hole. I like to do tires the most professional way possible. I like to take the logos, line them up with the valve stem, and I like to look on the tire and find the rotation arrow. So you're rotating this way, so the wheel's going this way, the tread's going forward, so everything's going to be matchy-matchy and the way it's supposed to be and not backwards. Not running the wrong direction for the tread, not having the logo in a random spot. This looks pro and it will help you later on trying to find flats. You can find the hole in the tube and then you know where the tube was in the tire, so you can go right to that same spot of the tire. You're like, oh, the hole's, at 3 o'clock. Go check the tire at 3 o'clock. No, there's the sharp thing. This tube is nice and fat. It's got a longer valve, which I like. Makes things easier to hold, easier to yank on, easier to be sure you're not having a pinch flat. People are so anal about old race rules and short valve stems for saving weight. And most bikes aren't race bikes. Most bikes aren't cutting every single gram. It doesn't really matter, especially on a tube. It doesn't weigh anything. Like, get cranks that aren't heavy. Like there's some real places where you can cut hundreds of grams. So trying to shave 1 or 2 in a silly place is just extra silly. I like to find a workbench, in this case the dryer, set the wheel down, put a little bit of air in the tube, really dial in how much I have. I like to go around and tuck it up and in. I really got to tuck. Sometimes I'll bring the bottom up and drop it into the tire. I gotta tuck, 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 otherwise you're gonna have a big loop hanging out. So just going around tucking the tube. Tight and jerk. Now the tube's tucked in, I can go around and tuck the actual tire. Do it in so many steps. Ah, it popped right in, that's nice. I do this in so many steps to make sure you don't pinch the tubes. The tube's already in, out of the way, so I'm not going to pinch it, pushing this guy in. I also peel the whole tire back and go around all the way and make sure I can see that rim tape and make sure I cannot see that tube. I also like the log valve stem for this. I can make sure it's caught or not caught. Make sure it goes up and down real easy. Make sure the tube's not pinched right here. This is the most common place to get a pinch flat because the valve sort of holds everything down, can sort of hold it in place. I think we are golden. Crappy leaky pump. I'm hearing some pops. This way I can tell that the bead is really seating. It's popping up into place and grabbing that rim. If you can't hear those pops, you can overinflate it a little bit, or you can squirt some soapy water along the side of the tire into that bead. So let it stop binding and slip to where it's supposed to be. Close that valve cap. I never trust them not to leak. And I always put the stuff back on because it's just more pro. Not tight, but just a little teeny finger tight and barely a quarter another turn. This doesn't rattle or come loose. Gorgeous. Need the cassette, and I found some not rusty skewers of the right era, so I'm gonna grab those too. So I cannot do the cassette yet and feel all accomplished. Here's a nice vintage clean Shimano skewer. It's a steel skewer. It's real flat, it's real leveragey. These actually work. Those modern skewers with like the little plastic cup, they just stretch out. They're terrible, they don't work. Wheels slip. Come on disc brake bikes, which is just insane. I'm against them, they're not cool. Like I mentioned before, these wheels are round and true, spoke tension's even. I barely had to touch them. I opened them up and put brand new bearings in. Fresh grease. Like these dudes are goods to go. You sure should just fit right in. You came out of this bike. This frame measures 135. This hub measures 135. But it sure isn't acting like it. It's a little tight. It fits fine. It's probably 134 and the hub's probably 136 or something stupid. Measure this rear spacing. Yeah, the rear spacing is only 132. Kudos, man. We'll check and see if one side pushed in or moved in a little bit and stretch it back out. The hub's 135. I got this cool tool. It's just 2 pieces of curved aluminum with a bolt in the middle. You can make one of these out of plastic. You can make one of these out of aluminum. Park sells one of these. And basically, it's for measuring your lock nut through your spokes. You can measure, hold it in place, and then now you can transfer it over here and really easily measure it. So you got 135. This is the Park FAG2. It is the frame alignment gauge. You put it's the head tube, put it against the seat tube, and then down here you can dial this guy in to touch the dropout. You can come and flip it around, touch the head tube, touch the seat tube, doesn't touch the dropout. In a previous video I made one of these out of a couple of rulers, cutting them down like some wooden yardsticks, put a few bolts in them so you can pivot. So you can make one of these for a few bucks. I bought this one used on Craigslist for 20 bucks. You don't see these all the time, but a bike shop was just renovating, and recently I went to a swap meet and they had like 6 of these for sale for like 10 bucks each. I was so disappointed. I was looking for a while. Or you can buy them brand new for like 50 bucks with free shipping on eBay. They're pretty handy if you're going to play with frames all the time, do weird stuff. Like right now, this side is in a couple mils. I'm going to give it a little push. This side seems to went in. That's crazy. This side's still in a couple of mils. One more little push. Double check in. That did nothing. Man, I just cannot finish this video. There's just always something going on. This side has come out a couple mils. Really, I'll probably have to do the 2x4 trick, where you put a 2x4 against it and against the seat tube. So you can come over here and squeeze the 2x4 and have it move. Like so. Don't want to damage this nice thin tube, which is a little scary. if that did anything. Normally what I do is bolt it down in an alignment table through the bottom bracket shell. I just put my weight down, pushing against the table, and that usually does what you want. It might be a little closer. Some frames just will not move, and then when they do move, they move like a ½ inch. You're like, oh! It's definitely moved a couple of millimeters. It's not perfectly 130, but real close. And I just want to finish this video. What a jerk. Oh wait, look at that. Basically slides right in. There's a tiny bit of wiggle, but not any real fight. I'm calling that close enough. Getting something perfect by bending 40 or 50 times is going to do more damage to the frame than having it be off by like 1 millimeter. So there we have it. A fight at every step, but we are part of the way there. Ta-da! Not nearly as far as I wanted to be on this already incredibly long video. So thanks for watching.